You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Podcast. This is episode number 303 of East Central's favorite podcast. Sorry, any other podcasters in the room. It's just the reality. I'm Jeremiah Morrell. Today I'm joined by executive video producer, audio engineer, the guy that touches hot wires every day that nearly gets us killed and canceled, Zach Burcham, and the guy who works with live wires every day for a living, my forever co-host, Mr. Dakota Davis. What do we have planned today?
Today's episode features Mr. Jarod Schrock and Caleb Jackson. They host the Two Tires and Fuel Only podcast. It is a East Central Indiana-based racing podcast. They're here to tell us a little bit about themselves, about the podcast that they host, the future of their show, and we're going to talk a little bit about racing as well in there. And then we're also going to talk about the Indianapolis 500, recap it, everything that happened. I wrote the show notes, so I'm sure there's some things that I missed, Jeremiah, some things that might have been more interesting that I didn't catch. So, if you want to hear all those things, make sure you stick around and listen to that part of the show.
Yeah, you didn't write in there anywhere about Pato Award throwing everything away. But that's okay. We'll get to it. This show is about our lives in rural Indiana. We're here to push your boundaries and make you think as individuals. Sometimes we'll provoke you, other times we'll make you laugh, but hopefully you'll always learn something new. If you are a member of our Patreon, you learned what, Dakota? We like a certain kind of chip.
That's right. There's chips on the table. We tried them. Patreon.com/BossHogOfLiberty. That's where you can go to support the show on a monetary basis every month. They start at $5 a month, and then we go all the way up to $50 a month. The way the Patreon works is like you sign up, you pay money. You get some bonuses. You get show notes that have included links. They also go through everything we're going to be talking about. You can follow along ahead of time, or you can read them beforehand and just see what we're going to talk about. And then we also give you access to a Facebook group that is only for you, and you also get a 20-minute bonus episode every week. And that is where we do our stupid human tricks, like eating spicy mustard chips. And
before the main show, and you never know how it's going to go.
Right.
If we have a bad look on our faces, it's probably because Dakota's stupid human trick backfired.
Right. Well,
check local listings. It could be 17 minutes. It could be 22. It's an implied contract, not a legal contract that you're getting 20 minutes each week.
All right. Sean Rao has not written anything about it. So, that's right. Patreon.com/BossHogOfLiberty. And the folks that give us $50 or more a month, they get a shout out at the front of every episode. And those folks are Mr. Jonathan Phillips, who is running for City Council Ward 2 in Newcastle, Indiana. Then we have Mr. Anthony Meyer, who is, he's trying to get your packages from all across the country. He's delivering things in his 18-wheel truck.
He's Mr. FedEx now.
That's right.
He's a different breed.
And then we have Miss Christy Avery from all the way in Fort Wayne, Indiana. She's our favorite Norwex dealer, so make sure you give her a call for your household needs. Then we also have merchandise. Just send us an email at Dakota or Jeremiah at BossHogOfLiberty.com, and we will get you hooked up with something custom. We can do whatever you want now. It's not even like a listing. You can do anything. Jeremiah's holding up his cup right now that was made for him by the Dainty Daisy. And it's got the Boss Hog of Liberty logo on it. They can make you just a Boss Hog of Liberty cup, or the sticker for the Boss Hog of Liberty can be on the bottom, whatever you want to do. So
you want to put it on the very bottom and not show it off to anybody,
right?
Or only when you tip it back.
When you're tipping it back.
When you tip it back,
it's an Easter egg when you finish your beverage.
That's right.
Right. Just to support us, but not to actually admit it to your friends. That's the way we want to do it.
You'd be surprised. She does a lot of stuff with designs on the bottoms of the cups, and they look pretty cool. It is a cool Easter egg. All right, let's get right into it. So, Jarod and Caleb, I know your parents. This is the first time I've ever met you.
I know, that's what I was saying.
See, on the inside, Dakota is 58 years old. You're Sue and John's boy, are you?
Well, I'd hate to say hate to admit how many times my mom and his mother-in-law have been together.
Yeah, a lot. They're best friends. Yeah. But you're friends with my wife on Facebook, and because you guys know each other. And then she told me you had a podcast, and then she told me you had a racing podcast, and it was like, oh, okay. Well, that has to happen, and we got to get them in whenever we're talking about racing stuff, which is the whole month of May. And wanted to get you guys in here, but you guys have the Two Tires and Fuel Only podcast.
Wait, stop. Dakota, why do you think they would have a show called that?
I don't know. I was getting ready to ask. I think
it's more fun for you to guess why they would ever choose that name. Because we get asked all the time why the hell we're Boss Hog Liberty, and I can't explain it. So why do you think they would be Two Tires and Fuel?
Well, the first thing that my mind went to, which is not the same, is when Lightning McQueen is going in the last lap and he says, "No tires, just gas."
So you're on the right path, actually.
I knew that had to be an Easter egg in the movie. That's one of the things I wanted to watch the movie with Jeremiah sometime so that he could point out everything to me.
By the way, that's
I've never seen it, so I can't wait.
You've never seen Cars?
It's been a long time.
Those are great movies.
I saw the first one.
You should watch 3.
I've seen the first
3 is spectacular. You'd appreciate 3.
3 is the best.
Well, maybe you can. Somebody gave me a projector today. Maybe we'll have a viewing at Mid-Ohio. All right. So Dakota, you were saying.
Yeah. So I was saying that's where my mind went. And then whenever I saw the name of the podcast, I connected it with Cars, and I was like, that has to be something. And then I tried Googling it, and I couldn't find anything. I found nothing.
All right, wait. So if they're taking Two Tires and Fuel, which 2 tires do you think they're taking?
The right side.
That's a good, yeah.
Because that's the way where the pitch is up.
So, and how many tires are there? There's 4. So why would you only take 2?
Because there'd be more wear on that side due to the pitch of the track.
And what would you save by not taking the less?
What do you mean?
What would you save? So why would you not want to take less?
Just for speed purposes.
Yes.
To get out of the pit faster.
Figured it out.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it.
He's done the story problem. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
It's been a great show.
Thanks, guys.
I didn't know if it was a story, like if there was a historic racing moment where some guy was the first to do it and then he came out on top by the skin of his teeth or something.
Oh, that had to have happened. But
It's just a big pit road strategy.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
at the end of the race, especially. With NASCAR, they have stage breaks now, where those are pretty important.
Fake racing.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, absolutely, strategy call at the end of the race. And it's one of those things where you want to start a podcast and you start looking at all the other names out there, and you're like, oh, those are kind of cool names. And then, for me, it was just like you take tires and fuel at the, with maybe a green, white checkered in the future. And
Now, because your name is supposed to be half as fast, do you find yourself limiting the amount of time you're able to be on the air? It was a real long 2 tires stop, guys.
I would say that
hour and 17 minutes this week.
I would say we are taking 2 tires and fuel only because we know about half as much information as we want to know before we get on the air, and then we start kicking it off. So it's like, let's just roll with it and see if we can win this thing.
All right.
That's what podcasts are all about.
Is there a Splash and Go podcast?
There probably is. It might be like, I would say in correlation with the gas station Come and Go, but that's not for me to, I guess speculate on.
It's spelled KUM though.
Yeah.
For those
We actually brought you guys something. I wanted to.
You brought a gift?
Yeah, we brought you guys some gifts.
All right.
So
this
we're
is
going to
a good
start with that.
I want to tell you, last week it was Tony Kanon's shoe, so I have
What
high
are you trying to
hopes.
do here, Jarod? You trying to become our favorite guest above Nancy Custer?
Yeah, so these are some 2 tires and fuel only coffee
we got
mugs.
some mugs.
That's fantastic.
And-
I can offer you a commemorative sticker in return.
Actually, I'm gonna slide this race car in there. This is actually
that is a John Andretti.
It is. So I'm glad you noticed it. So I have a bunch of small die casts at home.
Jeremiah
And,
recognized it before.
And I was like, man, I don't know if I can relate to IndyCar, like, road course racing or anything as far as NASCAR goes of stuff that I have. But then I saw that sweet John Andretti ride, and I was like, you know what? Let me
So
give that away.
I don't know if I've told this story. I'm sure I probably have, but probably the day John died, we had to do a podcast. That sucked. The reason I became a big IndyCar fan was following John.
Really?
Was from his stock car side, and he came back to IndyCar and followed John over, and I was like, well, now I'm hooked. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, I'm glad you guys like it. Yeah, the coffee mugs, be sure to show those off. We actually got these as gifts from Josh Hotzenpiller and his wife Elizabeth. She does a lot of the merchandise stuff, like for her part-time stuff at home. And yeah, we got some koozies, and our merchandise has not gone live yet. So this is like you guys are
these
Patreons
are
of our
very
podcast.
Little trial run here.
But anyways, yeah, once we get that stuff up and running, we will, have a website for it. And if you guys ever follow us, those that are listening,
I'm going to be like a diamond inspector over here with my flashlight, trying to turn this on and actually see. I'm trying to read the door up here.
There might be some dust.
It does say Johnny Andretti. I was like, man, I really hope it's not a Bobby Hamilton.
Yeah,
He's passing this off on me,
Well, there's a lot of, I guess when I look at the 43 car and those that have raced for Petty in the past, like AJ Allmendinger raced, for Petty Motorsports at one time, and he came, I guess, from the IndyCar side.
Yeah. Kyle Petty would say that it wasn't really Petty Enterprises at that point. It's fake. But yes,
Kyle Petty has a lot to say.
It's Legacy Motor Club now.
Yeah. It's they have an official team mascot. It's an 85-year-old Cup champion.
No kidding. They parade him around every weekend.
That's what it started. Look, hey, he gets a free pass and gets to be the king. So it's good work if he can get it.
You should take that home with you, because the next time my son's in the studio,
he's going to steal it.
It'll end up in his pocket.
I didn't know. How do you raise a klepto and just say it's fine?
No, it's just cars. Anything to do with cars, he's going to take it.
You need to take him to a racetrack. Is what you need to do.
Yep, it's in the plans.
All right, so tell us, Caleb, what's your hook on racing? What gets you into this, and to the point where you have enough fandom to say I'm going to be on a racing podcast?
Well, I mean, it originally started growing up with the Dale Earnhardt, Jeff Gordon fandom. It really kind of got
Team Rainbow or Team Black.
I was Rainbow, and
you said it out loud. That's it's important.
Yes,
it is June.
It's June, so. No, it kind of got sparked that way and fueled. My grandfather and my grandma liked it. And then also one of my dad's best friends, who's a neighbor to them, Daryl Ferguson, he was a Dale Earnhardt fan, and him and my dad would see each other almost every day. And it was just kind of one of those things that just sparked interest, and it was just fun. And then years went on, and I stayed into the sport a little bit. And now it's, when Jeff Gordon stepped away, Chase Elliott took over the 24 car, and that was kind of just, I stayed with the 24 car, and then he moved to the 9 car to follow his dad. So I've traveled along those.
Who the hell are you cheering for this weekend then?
He's parked.
Corey LaJoy.
But it will be cool to see Corey LaJoy driving that car.
Stacking pennies with him this weekend.
I saw Bubba Wallace tweeted out and said stacking quarters today. So he's got a little bit better equipment this weekend. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. But then Jarod and I went to college together, and we talked about it a little bit in college. Weren't as invested in as it is now. But then when he got back from the Marines, and when I found out he wasn't living too far away from me, kind of sparked interest back into it. And then about 2 or 3 years later, and now we're doing this.
Very good. And Jarod, was it NASCAR? Was it short track stuff? What was your impetus?
No, I mean, honestly, like, my dad took me to the track. We were at the Brickyard 400 practice. And I vaguely remember seeing the details of like the wall in turn 3 and the catch fence. And the number 3 car coming down the backstretch, and then,
what year are we talking about here?
98 maybe.
All right.
And so I'm 5 years old, and my dad's a Terry Labonte fan, and so
good man.
Yeah, I grew up
strong choices.
Yeah, grew up watching,
eating a lot of Kellogg's.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But anyways, yeah. So I grew up a Terry Labonte fan, but I remember those two distinctly out on the track, and that was really, as a kid, all I can remember from being in. At the track in person. Of course, they had, events growing up where the drivers would have, whatever backup car or used cars that they didn't have before, at events around Indy during the Brickyard and stuff. So we would, go to those events, and I remember getting pictures in front of Jeff Gordon's car and things of that nature. But, Logansport, where I grew up, is, close to the old US 24 Speedway. And, Tommy Corcoran, one of my friends that we had on the show, I know his family does a lot of racing out there. I vaguely remember going to that track growing up. But I was so involved with, the stick and ball sports growing up that I didn't lose interest in it. It's just Terry Labonte was done racing, in the early 2000s. So, and he was driving like the number 96, like DLP car that nobody cared about. So,
Troy Aikman cared.
Yeah, of course. But anyways, yeah. So it wasn't something that throughout my teen years I was really hooked on. I was more interested in getting better at sports and going to college to play basketball. And then, one day, I was active duty for 3 years in the Marine Corps, and I was in Japan, and the time difference is 13 hours. So, you can imagine like trying to watch sports. It's just like, you don't, so, American sports are not on at the times that, you would typically watch them. And so anyways, I flipped on a race. I can't remember if it was morning or nighttime. And I saw that, Justin Haley was running I think it was a truck race. And, they said Winamac, Indiana, which is, right down the road from where I grew up. So I decided to, start YouTubing and
you're all in.
Yeah. And then next thing you know, like I really,
so this is before he ran Daytona and had his,
before,
yeah,
all of that.
You're fan number one. Your Justin Haley is like Alex Palou for my wife and I.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
And I mean, how long's Alex been in
2020? He came over here day one with, to America, same thing.
Yeah.
And that's where Sarah and I were OG.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
But that's what's cool. It's like, if you're not a race fan, or you're not really into it, or you used to be, I feel like you got to have a driver or a team to really be invested in it. And,
it's not about race cars or, it's not necessarily about hey, yeah, this race car is going fast, whatever. It's about personalities, right? It's the personal story that gets people interested in.
100%. So, I've never been to the Kentucky Derby, but I can't imagine the people that go down there are, even when they're placing money, aren't putting money on one horse. You don't have to know the horses down there. It's not the connection that you have with a race car driver. But all I'm trying to say is you typically have somebody out there that you're rooting for, right? So, that's really what drew me back into racing. And then the podcast idea came later.
Yep.
It is interesting because as we've gone through all these series, I think every year we've had a Indy 500 preview episode at least. And I'm not a big racing fan, but I am a fan of UFC. So I like to watch fighting, and I've noticed that the parallel there is you're focused on one individual. So like you just said, it's not about like, the racing. It's like you're invested in this one person's story. You enjoy watching them, their rises, and whenever they fail, you feel it with them. And there's a personal connection with the athlete that you're watching or that you're rooting for or something, versus a team. It's much less personal. It's just more of like an identity with like a tribe. You identify with a group of people, and it's way less individualized that way.
And in motorsports, you've got the opportunity where you can actually interact with these folks. You know what? The most recent NASCAR race I went to I think it was with Zach. It was the first IndyCar NASCAR weekend, and I'm walking back towards the museum, and there's Corey LaJoie walking down the street, stopped, hey, took a picture, big fan of your dad's, whatever, and more. You just can't stop and meet Aaron Rodgers. Like it's not, you don't go watch a Jets game this year and go meet Aaron Rodgers, but you go to a NASCAR race and there's a damn good chance you're going to walk across and see somebody every time. So you've got this access to people that you don't normally have in other forms of sports.
Last year when they were doing the it's not the Brickyard, but the road course at
the Verizon 200 at the Brickyard.
It kills me to say that now, but I was walking down Mass Ave, and there was Tyler Reddick down there with his family.
Was he looking for cheddars?
He was hiding. He's not very tall, but I spotted him out, and I honestly could say I was probably the only one that did. But it was pretty cool.
I would say that the race, like the fan experience that you get when you buy that package to go to the racetrack, if you haven't been to a NASCAR race before and this is something that you want to do, the Indianapolis Verizon 200 or whatever the heck it is now is in August. I think it's the 13th, and definitely buy the fan experience pass because, to your point, Jeremiah, you can go down in the garage area, and it's fenced off. You're not going to be able to go touch the car, but you'll be down there when the guys are walking out of the driver's meeting. I mean, it's literally you're within what feels like an arm's reach away, and that's what kind of makes that personal connection with that driver so much greater. Is when you get to be that close to it. It's like so close you can almost touch and feel it. It's something that no other sport I feel like gives that type of vibe to.
Yeah, the access. Have you been to an IndyCar race yet?
So I did my first Indy 500 last year.
But did you go race day or did you go earlier in the month?
I just went race day.
Oh, go early in the month.
So trust me, I've been following you guys a little bit over the last couple of weeks, and the stories I'm hearing.
The amount of access is unbelievable. Race morning, we had passes so we could be in the garage area. But I said hey to Dennis Reinbold, who owns Graham Rahall's car and Ryan Hunter Ray's car. R.C. Enerson was with right there with me, just standing there chatting. Jacob Abel was race morning. Like the year before, we saw Marcus Ericsson in the garage area the week before, at 2 hours before he got in the car. You're talking about all these people that buy shirts and hats and were driver rep. Zach, I saw actual Marcus Ericsson fans this year.
Good for them. Husky probably full of man. On a Cessna.
This is the other side of racing that's fun.
It's as much fun to not like people as it is to like people.
Is the division, right? So Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt, those fans, they despise the other guy.
They sold the other guy's merch. Like they were actively. There's, I bet how much Dale Earnhardt Senior stuff or how much Jeff Gordon stuff was sold because he was the guy who was going up against the other guy. Like that was they're picking sides. So
Zach takes delight. Every year he's got somebody he hates now. And it's
when
new.
I was growing up, everybody hated Tony Stewart.
Oh, not in this state. He's beloved.
Rushville Rocket.
I'll tell you what got him.
Columbus Comet.
He became a lot more popular the older he got because the older he got, the less he cared. If you want to have the greatest time of your life, look up Tony Stewart interviews on YouTube. And we
should have run him backwards and wrecked the rest of the cars too.
Especially like at Talladega restrictor plate races. Oh, and he was in Indiana. Was he at Winchester over the weekend? He and
Ryan Newman.
He and Newman and somebody else were at Winchester over the weekend. Tony Stewart, fantastic. And then you go over to Eldora. Eldora is amazing in part because of Tony Stewart. He owns the track now, and what he's done to it's pretty cool. But
he's actually, we have a bit from one of those clips that is part of our intro to our podcast.
It's like the Jim Mora playoffs thing.
Yep.
But Tony Stewart's got like a half a dozen of those. It's like a 5-minute reel on YouTube of those.
Yeah.
My favorite NASCAR quote of all time is Sterling Marlin calling Greg Biffle a bug-eyed dummy. There's nothing better. Every time I hear a Greg Biffle story, I just think bug-eyed dummy. That's all I need.
NASCAR does have a better, because they have a bunch of good old boys, and you don't know what's going to come out of their mouth and what dialect euphemisms are going to drop. Because the Burton brothers, two totally different ways of speaking, and they're brothers. And
you had to run it back for Ward to understand what he was saying.
Yeah. And so, you never know what you're going to get out of some guy who grew up and just don't move your mouth.
We'll tight, but we wouldn't go to walking him.
Some of the NASCAR guys, you get them going, and they'll use turns of phrase you never even heard in your life, and it's because they're from some little town in Georgia, and that's where they picked it up off their aunt or something.
You can't get that with Augustine Canapino.
No,
he's only known English since February. It's just not going to happen. All right. So how do people follow the podcast? You guys, you're just getting, I assume you started at the beginning of this racing season, essentially is when y'all came on the air.
Yep. About, so I think it was like right after the Daytona 500 was our first episode. Yeah. And so, February, but anyways, we got a Facebook page. So 2 Tires and Fuel Only podcast. And we're on Spotify right now, so we're not on any other platforms, but we got an Instagram page, 2 Tires and Fuel Only, and then you can find us on Twitter. I won't give the Twitter handle because it's just going to jumble up everything backwards pretty much, but Yeah, so those are our main platforms that we're on. So we post, racing news and stuff on there. And really what the purpose of the podcast is here to do is to not only talk NASCAR, but to give some of our drivers at the roots level a platform to share their story. And kind of the idea that I had going into this is, I'm sure you've listened to the Dale Jr. Download plenty of times, which is a great podcast for those NASCAR fans out there. But he brings in a lot of different guests, just like you guys do. And I thought to myself, if I'm going to have this podcast, like I want to bring people on and interview them, and I want to get involved with some of our local racers. And so we've done that. Our first two guests, Josh Hodson-Pillar, who I mentioned earlier, races modifieds on dirt. I was just at Kokomo Speedway with him this weekend. Great time, by the way. And then Tommy Corcoran races for the Yard Cart National Series that Matt Monday owns, and I can dive into those a little bit later if you guys want me to. And yeah, I mean, having those two guys on and just hearing their story and them being able to share where they're at in their career is something that I look forward to.
What do you hear from guys like that as to what their goals are? Is it a hobby still, or is it, hey, this is a stepping stone where I want to get into NASCAR? I want to get into IndyCar or some sort of Formula Series. What are the motivations you're hearing from guys?
So I think it's from Josh, like specifically, his dad raced on dirt. He's trying to get better in his modified right now. Like that's his goal, his short-term goal. And I'm sure if you asked him if he wanted to get to the cup level, like there's no doubt in my mind he would say yes. But most of these guys are running on, a very tight financial budget where, they're raising their family and they're making just enough money to pay bills and get to the racetrack each weekend. So I think their long-term goals are just like anybody would be that wants to get behind the wheel. But developing their craft and their skill at the level that they're at is a huge priority for them. I know Tommy right now, he's racing go-karts on dirt, and his family is very well known for sprint cars and midgets, and like that's his next step is to get into a sprint car. So like long-term goals, I think they want to be like either dad or grandpa or whoever was setting records back in the day racing these same types of cars.
It's very generational, right?
It is.
A lot of family stuff.
So.
Because nobody's going to give you a race car to drive, right? You've got to find a way to get into one. And the barrier to entry is insane. You want to go buy a modified and put a race engine in. It's a $25,000-$30,000 motor, right? And with no knowledge as to how the hell to even set the thing up or know what you're doing.
Yeah, and Josh says his motor was only $500, so I don't know what scrapyard he got it from. But with that being said, you can imagine the maintenance and the work that's got to go into that to even compete or keep up with the folks that have those $20,000 motors in them. So
sounds like he knows someone with a machine shop.
Yeah, he does.
So you guys remember when we had Brayton Laster on before he went to Daytona? The pizza man, from south of Indianapolis, and Gavin Newton was with us, and I saw Gavin at the Speedway qualifying weekend. Might have been Fast Friday, sitting with him, and that week Brayton was, they have a scrapyard essentially, and he was taking an old Chevy 5.3 liter engine block and trying to get it ready so that he could go to the Circle City Raceway and go below the engine after lap 5, but he was going to make the race, right? Same thing. These guys grind. It's unbelievable. You have a real job, you have a real life, but then you do whatever you can to answer the bell to be able to show up and turn some laps on Friday night or Saturday night.
Yeah, and you have to be smart at just about everything that comes with the car to be able to do all the things to make it go the way it's supposed to. Yeah. And so there's a lot of just raw knowledge and skill that has either been handed down or, learned from hands-on training, trial and error, while working on the race car. So
that's why I'm excited. Josh Berry is coming into the Cup Series probably next year to replace Kevin Harvick, but because he's a crew chief guy first, right? He's been running a pavement, whatever, the late model division for Dale Jr.'s team, and he's been the guy putting the whole thing together and has figured out how to get there himself. He's not, the 22-year-old who's never gotten grease on his hands.
He's been in the business for a little bit, and he proved it this year that he could do it when he got the opportunity to race in the 9 car. And then when Alex Bowman got hurt, took over that. And I think he really stamped it for Tony, really put an impression on Tony Stewart this year whenever he got in the Bowman car for a few races. Shows that he belongs. And from the sound of it, sounds like he's going to get the opportunity if Tony can pay him now.
He can win the bidding war.
Have you guys seen the new episodes that Flow Racing just put out on YouTube? It's called Dirt.
No.
It's incredible. They have, I'm sure there's some Kyle Larson fans out there, which, by the way, he's running the Indy 500 next year, which.
Yeah, he's going to be one of the 9 McLarens on track next year. All
right. Well, as long as Ross Chastain's out there, I got confidence that he'll at least make the show. But no, it features Kyle and his dirt, sprint car career, and just covers a lot of the, I guess, World of Outlaws guys that are really tearing up the scene at the roots level. And so, just watching that and then bouncing the ideas that I have, for the podcast, they correlate. And I'm just trying to grow the sport at the roots level. And a lot of our listeners right now are just folks from back home, right? That's how everything starts off. Everything's small. We're small, just like these guys going to the dirt track. And I want fans to get out there and watch these guys because they have just as much grit and maybe not the raw talent that some of the NASCAR drivers, but really just they don't have the opportunities that some of those guys get. I know I was listening to your episode with Mike Adams? Is that? Yep. So they talked about the road to Indy, and back to your question about these guys and what their long-term goals are. There's not really around here. There's not much of a road to anywhere unless the opportunity presents itself, or somebody that knows somebody. Most of that stuff happens out in North Carolina. But anyways, yeah, like we honestly want to get more fans involved and go into our local racetracks. I can tell you right now, the first time that I was at Kokomo Speedway and watched a race in the 29 years I've been on this earth and lived near there was this weekend. And I had the time of my life. And I stood right up there on the wall in turn 2. And you talk about, you ever go watch a 3D movie or whatever where the chair moves and you're kind of involved, or 4D or whatever it's called now. Well, imagine being at the racetrack and feeling the motor like you're that close. I was getting showered with dirt. And I think it was like yesterday where I finally got the rest of the dirt out of my ear, which is disgusting, but it was so fun because you're right there on top of it. And it just goes back to the access point you're talking about earlier. But like I said, a lot of these guys, they get after it. And Kyle Larson said in that dirt episode that sprint cars are the most fun car he's ever been in, and they're also the fastest thing. And the reaction time is, you got to be super quick. Or it could be, catastrophic. So
the amount of horsepower available in a sprint car or a Silver Crown car versus the weight of the vehicle and the downforce available is broken, right? It's all about throttle control and be able to do it. Kyle Larson, Kyle Robbins has been on this show a half dozen times over the last few years. He runs a Silver Crown car out of Newcastle, and we'd go to Eldora to watch him. And where the cars are after lap 1. And then they all just start. It's a cloud of dust. The entire place disappears. You can't follow a car. You can't follow. It's just insanity in the dark. It's nuts. And it happens all, across the Midwest almost every weekend, at Lawrenceburg, at Terre Haute, at Eldora. You pick your small town. There's a Brownstown. There's a dirt track.
Yeah, there's quite a few. I actually have a list, and once we get our website built, I'm going to have basically links to all of those, tracks that you can just go through and find a free weekend. And, it's only like, most places are like $10 to $30, like tops. Like a pit pass at Kokomo Speedway,
probably $30.
$30.
Yep.
Anybody can buy a pit pass. and you're not in the infield like most pits are at racetracks, but you're walking around all the drivers, all of their cars, and most of those guys have, if you have kids, you can bring them out there, and those guys have like hero cards and stuff, and they'll sign them for your kids. I mean, it's, I would absolutely love it. I know my brother takes his 3-year-old to the racetrack all the time, and it's like his favorite thing to do. And but yeah, anyways.
So this is what's in
the dirt track is half of the premise of Cars 3, right, Zach?
It is.
Yeah.
Jeremiah really is missing out by not having watched Cars 3. It's like it goes back to the origins of NASCAR.
I mean, I'm 39 years old and I don't have any kids of my own. So when when they have a preview and I'm sitting front row and center at Cars 3 in the movie theater,
yeah,
I just got a new nephew last week. Give me a minute and I'll bring.
I haven't seen it either. So if you want me to go with you and make it just a little bit more weird, we can go.
We're gonna wear our Jeff Gordon shirts.
Heck yeah!
You can skip number 2.
Two's like Mario 2, just not good. Like Super Mario Brothers 2, just not good. Cars 3 is spectacular. It's really a shame.
Understood.
We're gonna have to we'll have a screening at Mid Ohio. It's just the way it'll work. We'll do a Cars 3 screening at Mid Ohio, and Dakota can come. All right. So all of these, he's shaking his head no.
I'm not gonna go to Mid Ohio. I have no interest.
You don't even know what you're missing.
Dude, that racetrack is so fun to go to. You can pick any spot on the track you want to go to and watch the race.
You don't need a camper.
You got a sleeping bag?
I'm not going to sleep in a tent at a racetrack.
Sleep under the stars.
Sounds like something a crazy person would do.
You got an air mattress?
You sleep on the roof of Zach's
I got an
camper.
air mattress in my truck. I will loan it to you. And with the plug-in. So just find a freaking outlet somewhere. Somebody's got a generator out there with all those campers.
Yeah, Jeremiah does.
Yeah. Hell, my
he
truck,
does.
my truck, you just turn it on and it's got an outlet on it.
When I went to Mid-Ohio for that Xfinity Series race, Matt Collig, the owner of Collig Racing, was just up and down the whatever roads they have there in a go-kart, just pounding White Claws. It was hilarious. Just driving right by us, having a good time, waving. So it was cool.
We've been to Mid Ohio, and the area we camped in had James Hinchcliffe came out there on a pit bike and hung out with us. Mr. NBC color guy, and he's like, "You realize you have more security to get to you than you do to get to where I sit, right?" We had one security guard that protected us, and there was nobody that kept us from going to his part of the world.
She's nice too. I like our security lady. I can describe our security lady to you. I get on her good side real early in the weekend.
Oh, she looks like she smokes 2 packs of Marlboros a day too. All right. So all of this fantastic racing happens. You go to Kokomo, you go to Anderson Speedway, but you have the Indy 500 as well. My quarrel is that all these great things happen the same damn weekend. Yeah. I've finally this year, Zach, I realized I wasn't going to burn the candle. I was already exhausted, but I wasn't going to burn the candle at all the ends and try to go back out to IRP on carb night. You're exhausted and tired. I didn't go see the Silver Crowns cars run. I didn't watch the USF 2000 cars run. Same problem. I didn't go back up to Anderson. When you live in Newcastle, you camp at Speedway and you're like, hey, there's a great race in Anderson. You're like, there's no freaking way I'm leaving the Speedway to go all the way back home to Anderson. That's why I never go to the Little Five.
Yeah.
But it looks like a fantastic. I mean, 33 cars running 500 laps around a third mile oval with pit stops.
The pit stops. I mean, it's just something that you have to go experience. I was sitting on the back stretch, and they start the race 3 wide and however many rows deep, like 10 rows deep or 12 or whatever. And there was a caution on the first lap, which could be expected with that type of start. But
how did Kenny Schrader do?
Was he even racing?
Supposed to. Yeah, he was in the race.
Was he really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I didn't have a show sheet or nothing. I just showed up.
Kenny Schrader was in the race.
Oh man, that hurts. Now I got to go back.
Zach's going to check the results for us real quick. Obviously, he didn't win. If you didn't,
no, he didn't. It was a 18-year-old, last name Trainer. It was his first race, and the only driver I knew in the field was CJ Leary because he's out of Greenfield, and I've seen his race shop. But anyways, I was sitting
on in the Gray Brothers car.
It was a big orange car. I don't know which one he was in this year.
He usually
I'm still learning.
He runs for the Gray Brothers quite a bit.
Yeah.
But anyways, when there's not rubber laid down on the first, like, I don't know, maybe 100 laps or so, and I was like maybe 4 or 5 rows up on the backstretch, and right as they come off of turns 1 and 2, and my buddy, I was like, hey man, do you think I need a like ear protection for this? He's like, nah, you're good. And I'm like, you know, I've been to these types of races. I'm like kind of questioning it. That was the worst 500 laps of you need to bring hearing protection, eye protection, because the rubber, when it's not laid down, actually flies up into the grandstands.
Yeah.
And so I was getting pelted.
Oh, I went to a Brickyard 400 where that happened. Yeah, I show up at every one of these races wearing my over-the-ear muffs. Like,
Yeah.
I'll throw a set of earbuds in if I want to listen to a scanner or whatever's going on. But 100%. I might be the only person in the stands doing it. They look like me, like I'm insane. But I absolutely wear those. I don't need them for an IndyCar race, but for a Silver Crown car, for a sprint car, oh yeah.
I went to Eldora once, and a rock took out the press box glass on the front straightaway.
Holy crap.
Somebody had some bad karma coming towards them in that press box.
Did you find our results, Zach?
Yeah, I'm looking at the results. We got 3 Newcastle people in there.
You had probably the Armstrong brothers.
Yeah. Armstrongs, and then there was Caleb Armstrong, and then Dalton Armstrong, which apparently might not be related though, because it's a different team owner.
No, I think he is. And Dakota.
Yeah,
And Dakota,
Dakota's my
Dakota's
age,
on
I
down.
What's the
there a
kid
little
with the
bit.
last name of Bacon?
Brady?
Brady?
Brady Bacon.
Brady's
Number
big name.
69.
Yeah, out of Broken.
Reminds me of Billy
out
Bob.
Broken Arrow,
I've
Oklahoma.
never seen him, but
That car used to be driven by Tracy Hines from Newcastle.
Seen a lot of Brady Bacon races over the years.
I mean, you can't help but be a fan of anybody whose last name's Bacon.
yeah. And they're number 69.
Yeah, there's a lot going
Gets
on
people
there.
going.
That's a lot of.
Was he the NOS car?
It was similar colors to the NOS schemes, but I don't think I was a different sponsor.
He might not have NOS on it anymore.
I don't see.
Maybe he didn't make the feature.
I don't see him in the feature. But there's a 33. That's a lot. That's just like scrolling through.
How many
here.
cautions were there? There had to be a lot.
There was at least 10. I mean, but you know, luckily there wasn't anything too bad. There may have been. I don't even think I saw a rollover. Actually, the rollover was at Kokomo Speedway. But back to the pit stops, though. You got to have a push truck to get these things going, to get them fired up. So you're relying on somebody in a
quad.
Yeah, on a quad or a
Old pickup truck, square body with a
square body
with a 6x4 front bumper,
plank,
or something.
just a plank of wood on the front, and you know they got a headset on, and you're literally just waiting on them at your pit stop, and the whole crew's just like, "Come on," you know, just waving everybody, and imagine maybe not all 33 coming in at for pit stops at one time, but you know, anywhere from like 15 to 20 cars on pit road, and there being 15 push trucks, and they're all trying to coordinate that, not run over each other. It's pretty wild.
I don't want to go all Kurt Cavan and be typing over here, but it's my trackside dig for Zach. It looks like Ken Schrader was an owner this year, but he didn't actually race it.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
Jake Trainer was
that's who won.
Was driving. He was driving Kenny's car.
So Kenny won.
Kind of explains a little bit.
There you go.
Kenny's still a winner.
Yep. There you go. Jake Trainer was driving the Kenny Schrader.
Said he was
car.
18.
Yeah, 18 years old.
Where's he from?
I think Massachusetts is what I heard.
Gotta have Jake Trainer on now.
It says Medway, Massachusetts. Although it says Matt Seymour Racing is the owner on the official website.
I don't know. This is the flowracing.com article talking about it. I would have to. Who actually owns a race car anymore? Does Brian Reinbold own a car? Does Cusick Racing own a car? It's all partnerships. Ron Milford says Kenny Schrader has to be in his 60s. Do we have an age check on Kenny Schrader before we move on? Kenny Schrader,
36 M&Ms. That's all I know.
25 Kodiak.
Yeah. There you go.
I'm much older.
I do recommend the one of the greatest Dinner with Racers episodes ever.
68.
Born 1955.
68 years old from Fenton, Missouri.
Oh, it's young.
Yeah. A great follow. If you want an introduction to a racing hero, go listen to the Kenny Schrader, either the Dale Jr. download with them or the
Both.
Dinner with Racers.
Both. You'll get the good stories twice because they're worth telling twice. he's continuing to live a life, and he's lived a life.
He's 68 years old. He says, "Yeah, I would." You know, I raced the Cup Series, and they only race 28 times a year, so I had 220 more dates to fill on the calendar. So I raced dirt cars during the week too. He would race 6 days a week.
Crazy. That's insane.
Yeah, guy stayed fresh. He loved it. Won 4 Cup races. All right, so Indy 500 recap. Dakota, what are your impressions of the world's greatest spectacle in motorsports? Tell me about your race day experience from the lake. What'd you learn?
I'll typically watch it, but this year we watched actually the majority of it. Usually I'll just catch the end, but I watch most of it outside.
Were you offended by a foreigner doing the broadcast?
No, we didn't have the volume up. Okay. We were outside. We were outside watching it on a TV with some friends. They have a TV outside under like a patio thing. But, I mean, we were just talking and drinking beer and watching it, not really.
It's the holidays. That's what you're supposed to do. You had it on. You just helped the rating. That's all we needed.
I did see my girl, Miss Legg, Catherine Legg. She went down.
So you had said
Pretty
you wanted to talk.
early.
You wanted to talk. Last week we picked our favorites and our dark horses.
Yep.
You picked your dark horse to win the race as Catherine Legg, and she finished 33rd.
Yep.
First out.
Pretty early on in the race, she wrecked in the pit stop.
So she did what they would call in the business the tiny penis renus, where
Okay.
where you absolutely lose control and you drive straight into the wall,
Yeah.
potentially taking out the guy I picked, Alex Pillow. So yeah, you had your dark horse was first out. Nobody had their favorite win the race, but Forrest Plank last week did pick Joseph Newgarden as his dark horse, and Joseph won the race.
My dad's first pick was Joseph Newgarden.
Yeah.
So he was freaking out like the last 5 laps, because Newgarden kind of started creeping up there after every caution or whatever. He'd creep up a step. My dad's
Newgarden started 17th. He started way back in the field.
Yep.
So, Caleb, you went to the race?
I did.
Where'd you sit?
Tower Terrace is actually, what is it, section 70? It was 79. It was right at the entrance of Pit Road.
Okay, so you were on the far north end.
It was the first time I've actually sat and watched a full race. I've always kind of just split it. I've always gone up, come down, gone up, come down. And it was a good spot. I know my best experience I had was on like turn 4, but it was a good experience.
Yeah, a lot of people like to get on the outside. You were in one of the tougher spots to sell. Like in a less attended year, this was the most attended other than the 100th in the last 25
I'm almost
years.
positive I got one of the last ones.
I'm sure you probably did. Yeah,
I got it late.
Those are usually like the last seats to get sold. So previously attended years, if you looked at helicopter shot, there's a lot of bare aluminum. This year there was no bare aluminum anywhere. Pretty much every grandstand seat was sold. And that was my big takeaway from the race, is that a lot of years, there's a ton of people there. People will go, they'll watch the start, and then they disappear. They go off and they wander the plaza, they're out drinking, they're partying, they're doing whatever. I sat in turn 3, nobody left. Like they might go to the bathroom, but they were back in 10 laps. The crowd was there the entire time. Like it was an engaged audience.
Not many people left from our section either.
Yeah.
It had everybody hooked.
Well, there was a lot of
like it met
action
its
during
match.
the race. For me, as someone who's just watching it between stories, it was like every time you look at the TV, something was happening.
There's a pass for the lead.
Right.
There's cars coming on and off pit road. Yeah. So very end of the race. I guess we get past halfway. We had our first yellow of the day. Stingray Rob put it in the wall, right? Which is a spectacular name. I figured Dakota would have picked Stingray Rob just for the Stingray Rob effect.
Well, I really actually thought, because I remembered last year with Dixon getting robbed, so I was like, I thought he would come back with a vengeance and lead most of it and then win. And so that's what I thought. And then I was like, Catherine Legg, just thought it would be funny if she won. Because that would have been hilarious. She had like plus 4,200 odds.
So you brought piece of go grab the sign you brought real quick. I'll tell you a story about it when you get back over here. So Dakota picked Catherine Legg, who was the 44 Honda for Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan Racing, and somehow Dakota has acquired this metal piece of beer advertisement that's now up on camera screen. If you're watching the podcast, it's live on the screen. At this point, you need to come back to the thing so you can talk, Dakota. He's just playing
the camera
cameraman
the
now.
car will be out of shot.
So, he's efforting. So yeah, this somehow it's this big Miller Racing. I looked at it and said, man, that's like 95, 96. And we looked it up. It's Bobby Ray Hall from 1996 is what the actual camera shot is. Your girl, Catherine Legg, drove for that race team. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Oh, really?
That is literally still the same race team going now as it was 30 years ago. The Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan race team.
Not doing too hot.
That is they won the 500 in 2020 with Takuma Sato, and now they've gone backwards.
They have like what they say. The article said that Bobby was triggering the Indy 500 recovery, like something rather like game plan. Like it was so bad that they're already starting to work on next year and figure out what they did wrong this year.
I guess to me it just felt like we're saying we're going to figure it out, but there's no actions yet.
Like they should have figured it out.
You put everybody on notice,
maybe like a week or two ago.
All right, I wanted to get a story from Zach real quick. I rushed into race day too quickly, but on Saturday, Zach, you got to do two things. You did the parade.
Yeah, I did. I had the busiest Saturday before the race of my entire life. It was a rat race.
You did the parade. You got to see a bunch of drivers. I don't know if you actually interacted with any there, but you did get tons of pictures and lots of drivers.
I stayed up on the hill by the War Memorial, so I had a good perspective. That was the smoothest parade I've had in a while, getting parked from... because they changed the course last year. We didn't know it, so we parked our normal spot and found out we were like a half a mile to 3/4 of a mile farther away. But yeah, we got a spot up on a hill at the War Memorial where we could see down on the drivers. And as Jeremiah has pointed out in some circles, my phone has a wicked zoom lens on it. Like I could take a picture. I was sitting on pit lane qualifications weekend, and I got a picture that Jeremiah is the only thing in the shot looking angry, and he's up in the upper deck on the outside of the front stretch. Like he was probably like 150 yards away, like linear feet. Like he was 3 stories above my head and all the way across the track.
I have no expectation of privacy when Zach's around.
No, it was an impressive picture. But yeah, so we also, I'd never seen him do this. I guess I've not been a member of the Indy Carnation thing in a while, for this long. But they had a thing like they said, hey, if you want to participate in the pre-race introduction rehearsals, enter in this. And I was like, well, that sounds fun. I didn't quite know what the time frames it was going to entail when we signed up. And so the 3 of us got chosen to that. So we got to participate as, like they said, they give you a card. I could have brought my card because I kept my second one. I did not keep the first one. This is who the driver you are. And if you watch the pre-race and you watched them get their names called and walk out on the stage and be introduced and shake, we got to do all of that in the morning.
We did it 6 times, starting at 7 a.m. on Saturday morning.
Yeah, and then
we were 5 feet from Dale Earnhardt Jr., by the way. We were there.
And
Steve Letarte and Dale Jr. right with us.
We'll get back. There's a funny moment there. And so we did that a couple times. And then they said, hey, if you want to come back at 2:30, you can participate in the actual run-through, because at no point are the drivers actually expected to do any of this. But it'll be the actual run-through with everybody there. And I'm like, well, that sounds cool. So we had to be at this rehearsal at 7 a.m. And we had my only negative interaction with a yellow shirt the entire month trying to get in. Did not want, Jeremiah drove us in. We've got parking passes and everything. He said, you're not allowed in there. You have to wait 15 minutes. And
it is 6:50 in the morning. I'm grumpy.
Yeah.
I have not had my full cup of coffee. I drove all the way around the racetrack to get from our northwest side outside turn 4, around through Speedway, back to 16th Street, turned around at the golf course, get to the gate 5 minutes before I need to be somewhere at 7 a.m. Yellow shirt says you can't be in here this early.
And he says you have to turn around. Jeremy was, well, that's fine. I'm not turning around though. And the guy finally just said, what time is it? We're early. So we're before 8 o'clock. Normally we can swear after 8 o'clock. But as we drove away,
earmuffs, kids.
As we drove away, you hear the guy say, this is bullshit. And after he told us to go, I've never been sworn at by a yellow shirt before.
I matched his energy, Zach. That's all I can say. Is he got shitty with me and I got shitty back.
But we got in there, and then we waited for 20 minutes for them to actually come get us for this rehearsal. So we could have waited till 7 a.m. They're like, be there at 7. And we just stood around, and we're just nerds, like a bunch of racing nerds staying around.
So which driver were you to start for the morning?
I was Devlin DeFrancesco, which it's one of those guys I'm not. I got to be the last person to represent Devlin DeFrancesco because he won't be back next year because his dad is going to stop writing checks and Andretti's going to stop accepting them. So I was him for the morning. I was Jack Harvey for the afternoon session. But it was cool. Like it was actually, I found it really fascinating to see the mechanics of this. Like that you got, like I told my wife, I spoiled it for desperately during the driver intros. I said, okay, I was like, they're going to dump the last guy. The camera's going to pan up from the yard of bricks. It's going to go up and he's going to walk to the right, but pan to the left and then pan to the right. I knew exactly what, because we saw it 7 times and this guy had this crazy camera rig on. But it's cool to be on the front straightaway at 7 a.m. or 7:30 by the time we got out there. They paid us in Brickyard bucks, which I didn't spend yet. So I still have my Brickyard bucks. I have to go back this year. But then it took 2.5 hours to do that audition or that rehearsal thing. And I'm like, I'm going to get back just in time to leave for the parade, and literally ran back, told my wife we're leaving for the parade, and then left for the parade. And then my wife had to drop me off at the gate to go into the track for the second rehearsal because the parade took the entire gap. So at this point it's 2:30. I haven't really stopped doing anything yet. And I've been going since I think I got up at 5:45 because I ran in the morning because I've been running every day. But the afternoon rehearsal was cool. I didn't hang around. I think you guys hung out a little bit. I bugged out.
We did. We stayed for the flyovers and everything.
And so I was back at the camper when the flyovers came over, and because I wanted to see one of the advantages of camping is you get to see you get to hear the audition rehearsal stuff, and you get to know exactly what the flyovers are, what their patterns are, and when they're coming. The first flyover, not that great. Second flyover was badass. They came in, spread across the track at full afterburner, like lit up, seeing fire come out the engines. And when
from my seat in turn 3, looking straight out and watching that afterburner go right over our heads by 200 feet.
Yeah.
Proud American.
I couldn't even see the closest one I couldn't see because I didn't really get to see. I joked when we sat down on Saturday. I said, I'm going to go here. I'm going to sit down because we waited for like 5 minutes for the second flyover. And I'm like, well, I guess they're not coming back around. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to go sit down. And the minute I sit down, they're going to butt. And they did. As soon as my butt hit the chair in my camper, they flew over. But I got just enough to see that they were full afterburner. They were F-16 Vipers. So I didn't know what the pattern was really because we were in trees. We have trees around our campsite. So, but the far right one came right over our heads. Like it was almost lost it in the flags that are directly behind me because we're in the top row. So that was awesome. It was such a busy day. I think I finally got the chance to sit down at like 3:30 or 4 o'clock after having been going.
And
since
right
6:30.
then at that moment, it would have been, hey, get in the truck. Let's go to Anderson.
Yeah. Not having it's Saturday's usually like a really chill day for me because I try to, like I literally did. I had a moment on carb day. I was running around Speedway, and I gotten up early just because I had stuff to do. Friday I drove home and got my family because I figured I could get them a little early. And I was like, I had like a moment of like, dang, it's almost over. Like the month is almost over. Carb day sucks as a fan who's been there all month because there's a billion people there and they weren't there any of the other time. There's literally exponentially more people that show up for race weekend. So Saturday kind of chill and enjoy being in the campground and enjoying, the people. Like there's always this freak out moment when you roll into our campground of, oh my gosh, there's so many people in front of you. And I was like, well, there's a guy in a Scamp with an S10. He always parks in the same spot. 2 sites over from him is a 3/4 ton Suburban with an old Airstream. And you see all these people every year. And I know all these people. And I almost went up to the Scamp people and said, I'm glad to see you guys. Every year you guys show up and it makes me happy because it's 15 years of like I've been in this lot for 10 or 12 years. They're in the same spot every year. So yeah, I just kind of enjoyed lot 6 and my time in there. So
how many days in a row are you at now?
Running?
Yeah.
Ooh, 5. I'm in the 5 teens, I think.
I thought you were more than that.
I was at 500 like for the beginning of May.
Yeah.
So, I've already hit it today.
Jarod, here's what I'll tell you. If you're going to go to the track and you want to actually have like the good fan experience, go the first weekend. Go for the Grand Prix.
Go for the Grand Prix or
go
for
for qualifying.
Yeah.
By race weekend, I couldn't take a full stride.
Yeah.
There were people in my way. I couldn't I couldn't walk. Like it wasn't even that hot. It was just annoying.
Yeah, and I feel like I had that kind of same experience when I went. It was like whether I was walking around on the infield or out to get concessions, like there was a swarm of people everywhere, like at any given moment.
Yep.
But I guess that's what makes it,
Yeah, that's why it's an incredible event, right? Yeah. And the event counts on having those people, that many people. That's all a part of what the event is. But for the racing fan, the people that want to see, like, to actually get in and get close and get their personal Indy 500, go early in the month.
Yeah, look, early in the month, like if you're in the garages, we get garage passes, you go in the garages, like there's a path where they come through Gasoline Alley and they come back into the garages. There might be 3 or 4 people staying around there. Carb Day, there's 500. You're literally in the second or third row of people waiting for somebody to walk by. And then I'll make fun of them a little bit. Half of them don't know who anybody are. Like they're not fans or corporate fans. They bought a Bryant heating and air conditioning unit in the last whatever month, or they bought a car at Dry Reinbold and they got a pass for it. And like they're like, "Where's Kyle Busch's car?" And like, "Oh, I don't need you guys here." Like literally, I heard that. And earlier in the month, I heard somebody yell Elio Castroneves at Simon Pagenaud, who's his teammate, but is very French and not Brazilian. And Simon was just like, "Hey, Elio," and just drove off. But I think the lady thought that he was Elio.
Simon had a new baby.
Yeah. I think Joey inadvertently publicized. I also got a Vid car ride on Saturday too. I crammed that in. I got riding around in the Camaro.
I'm going to move us down the show notes here. The car that wouldn't start at the very beginning.
Graham Rahal.
How in the world? Whenever they said, he got a new battery and he's back out, it's like he literally just had a dead battery in his Indy 500
here's the
race
thing, though.
car.
They don't start with an onboard battery. They're externally started cars. So the starter is external, has its own battery. If you ever see it, it's a pretty impressive little setup. It's in a little cart that's about the size of a 6-pack cooler on it with this huge heavy cable that runs to the external starter, which is so juiced up that it's got a foot on it, because if the guy tried to just hold it, it would snap his wrist.
Face would be in the concrete.
Yeah, so it's got like a kickstand. And so that's what they would start it with. So this battery would, I'm assuming, just be like essentially voltage regulation, like a normal battery would be for the rest of the car. But the car has been parked for 48 hours.
Yeah, they haven't run since Friday.
Yeah.
They would have run it. So on race morning, they do have 2 like engine warm-ups where they fire it up and they let it run and come up to temperature or whatever, and they do some diag on pit lane. But if something happened, who knows? That particular car, Dakota, is the one that Steph Wilson, remember the gnarly jerky car from last year?
Yep.
It was Steph. That was the team he was with, the Cusick Motorsports car. They tubbed it. They destroyed that car on Monday. And then Graham Rahal got 1 day of practice in the car. And it was a brand new car. So they took and rebuilt the car completely, got 2 hours of practice, and that was all that car had. So it probably wasn't as sorted as everybody else. So if you were going to have a likelihood of one of them screwing up, it would have been Graham's car.
Gotcha. Okay. I guess it makes more sense. It just seems like you said, with the warm-ups on race day, how could they not catch a bad battery?
Yeah, I think
it
was just a curse.
With Rahal's weekend, the way it went, I think it's also, I wouldn't say it's more common than not, but like even at the dirt level, like Josh, when I went and watched him race this weekend, like he went out, car was fine for the heat race, and then his B main event, and then like the next, or not the B main, for hot laps, and then the heat race, and then he went to the B main event, was starting outside front row and going into turn 1, engine failure. So I think there's probably some wiring issues too. I don't know what the case was with.
I bet that car had been half torn apart and put back together too between Carb Day and the race. They would have probably done checks and rechecked, and something just doesn't. I mean, you ever watch those guys? They thrash on those cars, and there's a million things that go wrong. So a wire got rubbed or something, or who knows?
It happened with I think his name's Justin Grant, the World of Outlaws sprint car racer at the Chili Bowl. He was literally rolling out to his heat race, and his lights wouldn't come on. And so he was sitting in the cockpit with a Phillips screwdriver unscrewing things as he's being pushed out to the track, and like literally got it fired up just in time.
Yep.
And so, I can imagine though, with it being a rebuilt car or whatnot, there was probably some issues, but it is at that level you would expect for those types of things to be mitigated.
And Jeremiah, speaking of mechanical issues, how many wrecks are there going to be in the pit area?
It happens every time. Like almost every 500.
Dario got spun on pit lane one of the years.
Townsend Bell crashed on pit road. You always pit road at Indianapolis is you got concrete on both sides. You've got cars that are trying to spin up essentially, and you're almost out of control trying to leave pit road, and you have 3 lanes wide. That's all you have. Concrete on both sides. It's not like a stock car track or going to Texas where, hey, if you need a little extra room, you can swing out to the right, you can run in the grass. You've got concrete walls on both sides, so you've got nowhere to go. And drivers that do not want to give up a single position. And a lot of times what happens is that a car will be finished with their service and the car in front of them is pulling in. So you saw Romain Grosjean and Colton Herta pitted next to each other. Colton's pulling out, Romain's coming in, and Colton drills him in the door, right? Screws them both up.
Is there going to come a day when the idea of stopping for fuel and tires and things like that becomes like a thought of ancient history?
I don't think so. I think that's a part of the competition of this race, and what part of what makes it a team sport.
Because like
in the 40s, you had cars that ran. There was a Cummins that ran the entire race and never made a pit stop. Right? There have been eras where they've done that. Yeah, so that has happened in the past. But the rules of the day now, you're going to make it 30 laps, 34 laps.
I mean, like Formula One will get rid of fueling at times, so they'll run a full thing of fuel because they'll have like one fire because somebody drives off with the fuel thing still attached. But I know Indy's a little different. They run a real tall first gear because I think they'll get like halfway through turn 1 before they shift out of first, and so they like are hammering it hard when they pull out. And so, like I think somebody said Rossi almost did the same thing. Because VK did it too. Captain Lake did it. VK did it. Somebody said Rossi almost did, but Rossi got out of it. So yeah, I think they're all pit stops are like the most dangerous part of anything. Like a couple years ago, the issue was that they were running these things that pulled their brake pads back in the rears. And so the driver had to remember to tap the brakes once to get the brakes in and then hit the brakes, and they would forget and they would just hit them.
It'd go ass over
delay,
tea kettle.
and then they would just lock up the rears, and they were spinning into pit lane like sideways, like several of them. So
I think the Colton Herta issue was, as a driver, I can imagine as soon as you feel the jack drop or whatever, that it's time to go and you're trying to get out as fast as you can. But his, I think, left front or right front tire changer.
His right front guy tells him when to go.
Exactly. And he had his fist closed or whatever the signal was to keep him.
He hadn't released him, but he went anyway.
Right.
And somebody might have been in his ear and said, go, go, go.
Exactly.
But
Like a spotter or something.
The tire guy's the last guy to.
In stock cars, when the jack drops, the driver goes. That's your signal. So if you're fueling a car and you're doing 2 tires, so 2 tires and fuel, right side still up, the driver's going to go when that jack drops. So the jack man gets the nod from the fueler and they say, okay, go. That's their release. For an Indy car, it's an air jack. I think they've already dropped the car because you don't want to drop it and release the car because it's still the mechanics what they're doing. But they have a tire changer on all 4 corners of the car, so that right front guy is essentially the one that determines who's going. This weekend it'll be really weird because you're going to have, depending upon which side of pit road you're on at Detroit, it'll be the left front guy or the right front guy.
Yeah,
split pit road.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to watch that.
Street racing problems.
It's going to be insane
because in IndyCar, like some of them, they don't say necessarily because Joseph Newgarden had the first female over the pit wall
to win
team member to win a race, and she is, I believe, the inside front tire changer. So depending on what she could be potentially doing 2 different sides, depending on because they'll be
sometimes pit road's on the left, sometimes on the right.
And sometimes they'll start in the pits before they qualify in one spot, and then they might move around through the weekend depending on how qualifications or something like that. So she could have to work both sides of the car in a given weekend if the car doesn't sit on the same side.
I bet the teams are thrilled to know that they have to go in, and that's another element.
The thing that they'll look for is if there's an advantage to one side or the other. Is they'll be screaming if they feel like the other side's got it.
If one side is concrete and one side is asphalt, or one side has a different delta, and it's like, say it's 5 seconds faster to go down one pit lane than the other, it's gonna be a show.
So, okay, here was the other thing that was exciting. Like we said, Joseph Newgarden wins the race, but he had worked his way up, and it was like every time there was a caution, every time that there was a restart, he was inching his way forward. He was passing guys. 3 red flags in the last 10 laps. Very interesting.
Yes.
There were a lot of cautions, too.
Yes.
You posted on Facebook, you said, for the love of God, stop crashing.
Yes. Yeah. I was pretty well over it.
Like crashing adds an element that's fun to racing, but also
this was a completely clean month. There really weren't that many crashes in the race. Like they got to lap 4 crashes in the race.
They got to lap 95 without anything.
Yeah, without any yellow at all. And then Felix Rosenqvist hit the wall, slid back across. Kyle Kirkwood hit him. That severed the wheel tire and half shaft from his car. That's what flew out into the golf course, hit the Chevy Cruze, and scared the living shit out of everybody.
Yeah, we were legit. Where I was in the stands, they were showing a replay, and I was like, "That tire doesn't come back." I don't know where that tire went, but they showed an angle, and it goes off to the right, and you're waiting. You're waiting for the.
I was hoping it wasn't
the shutter as it hits the fence and comes back. I'm like, that tire never came back. I'm like, that tire is somewhere, and like they got. So
we were right there with Joey on Saturday, Thursday.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Thursday. We were right where that tire landed.
Yeah.
That you picked a golf ball up from right there.
Yeah.
Our free new golf ball.
They got so lucky.
It could have been really, really bad.
Especially if even if the tire wasn't the first thing, it had a half shaft sticking out of it that was like this long. There's a great shot of it from the short chute with the sweets in the background. It's in focus and everything. It's not blurry at all. And it's got a big chunk of, it's either, you can tell it was that at first, or maybe it was an upright, which is, what do you want to get stung with? Hardened steel or carbon fiber? They both hurt. But, and then the tire is going to clear you off too. I mean, it did some damage to this woman's car. It like crushed the headlight, crushed the hood part of the fender.
And that was after it hit the ground.
I think it hit the car and then went I don't even know.
It impacted a light pole and a car. I don't know which order they hit each other in, but it caught both.
Scary.
Penske's gonna buy that woman a car.
She's getting it. He owns a number of Chevrolet dealerships and thinks she's going to be hooked up. So that caused a red flag. Kirkwood wound up on his helmet, essentially on his roof. No roof in IndyCar, but he was inverted. So that was an obvious red flag. It was a mess.
Do you see the video? He's like, he opens his shield as he's sliding.
He didn't know where he was.
He was trying to figure out what the hell was going on, and he popped it up.
Isn't that wild?
His owner had to tell him not to unbuckle because he's like, if you unbuckle right now, you'll fall out of the car.
Yeah, he's cool. I got pictures of him. The last 2 years, Kirkwood has been an incredible person. Super approachable, really great guy. Big fan of Kirkwood. But so that caused a red flag, massive cleanup effort. And then everybody gets antsy because there's like 8 laps to go. When the green flag comes back out, it's the restart. And this is the thing is we didn't run that many after that accident with Rosenqvist and Kirkwood. We didn't have much more green flag laps. They take green. I think it's the first lap back. Pato O'Ward in the black Aero McLaren car right in front of me. This is in front of my seats in turn 3. Pato absolutely loses his mind. 7 laps to go in a race where you cannot hold the lead for 7 laps. There's an aerodynamic disadvantage. You're not going to hold the lead. He gets it in his mind. I've got to make the pass now. I've got to win this race right now. And he forces it, sends it in. And it's exactly what happened with Takuma Sato and Dario Franchitti 2012. He just swaps ends and ends up in the wall. You could see it coming the entire backstretch that he's making the move way too late, and then it happened. It was dumb because he had a car that should have won the race.
And it took out Agustin Canapino.
And my dark horse, Simon Pagenaud.
Yeah.
It was just ugly.
Did he get his left sides in the grass there before he spun? Was he that deep? Or
He
did he just
didn't
sucked
get in the
around?
grass. He started too late.
Yeah.
His entry, he had a bad angle on the entry.
Gotcha.
He
Pitched himself down.
He and Marcus were going to share the same apex. But he was going to get there about a half car too late.
Well, it looked like they touched.
They did. It looked like right front to left rear. You watch the Sato wreck from Sato and Dario. It looked like a carbon copy. It was come in, and unfortunately, the front end of an Indy car is a lot lighter than the back end, and so I think it's literally just the law of which one has the most mass at that point, and it's a bigger tire with an engine stuck next to it and a gearbox. And he said he's going, next time I'll take us both out. I'm like, good luck, buddy. But
there's also a lot of people were reminded before most of you were born. 1989, turn 3, Emerson Fittipaldi and Al Unser Jr. Same deal, and Al Jr. didn't make it out of that turn. Then the yellow came out, and Al Jr. Clapped instead of flipping off Emerson Fittipaldi, and Emma won the race. But they said, "Hey, we can preserve laps. We can red flag it," and they've done that before. They did that maybe, I don't know which year. Maybe it was just last year. But they've done it a few times where with a few laps to go in the race, you preserve it, you throw the red flag out. Okay, that one was not great, but it's been done. There was precedent. And then the final restart there, I guess that was it. They took them 4 laps to clean up, so maybe it went from 7 to go to 3 to go, somewhere in there. Pato, there was also, they lost a lap because Pato tried to restart at like 60 miles an hour.
I got a question for you, because you could see that better than I could. I know it's very hard to judge speed. How slow do you think Pato was going during
70.
the restart?
They were all going slow.
If that.
Everybody. It was like the
pace car
It looked like they were trying to start at Long Beach.
The normal, I'm sitting right in the short chute between 3 and 4. And the normal thing for me to see is the pace car comes around, and when they're done, lights are off. They come by themselves. But normally, as they're disappearing around 4, the field comes into 3. In this case, I felt like I sat there and could have chugged a beer, and the field hadn't shown up yet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where's the field? And we're like, somebody's like, Pato's dragging it. And we're like, oh my gosh. It was the slowest. And then before they even got to the exit of 4, they're just like, caution.
Yeah, they just said no.
This is a joke. So, I mean, it looked like 50 miles an hour.
So, yeah, Pato screwed up twice there in that last 10 laps. So then they have another restart, and then the back end of its field loses its mind coming to green. 2 or 3 cars crashed. Benjamin Peterson, one of the Foyt cars, Ed Carpenter. That was a disaster of a restart. And then that's where things got really weird, and IndyCar had a bit of a panic moment because they ran 1 lap under caution, and then they said, oh, we can still stop. We can save this. And they threw the red flag out. Because I think the NBC broadcast was pretty well awarding the win to Marcus Ericsson. Mm-hmm. And then they heard Zach screaming from his seats and saying, not again, not Marcus, that son of a bitch.
I was like, who's in the lead? And they showed Marcus there. I was like, nah, anybody but Marcus. And he was in the lead. And it was like 3 wide at the start finish line.
Yeah.
The restarts have been a dumpster fire. Like they would come in front of me like 3 wide, and they hadn't got the green yet.
Let me ask you this, because it's a problem in NASCAR. Like the green white checkers, you can't guarantee it, but it's a majority of the time if there's a caution anywhere under 12 laps to go, like there's going to
print
green,
out
green white checkered, and then there's going to be a wreck because somebody's going to send it in.
And that's why
is that a problem?
I
in
tweeted
IndyCar
out.
Or no?
Not normally. That's why I had my little meltdown of please stop wrecking race cars. Yeah. Like they had such a clean month. They made it through every practice day, all through qualifying. Nobody got into the wall. Nothing went wrong. Then we had 1 accident that made somebody go to a backup car on Monday, but that was it. And then you get the last half of the race, and they start to lose their minds. 107 runnings in the Indy 500. It's always been 500 miles, 200 laps. Like that's straight up. Like the Daytona 500 somewhere in the last 15 years has been, hell, they've run the Daytona 525 before. Like they've had some extended laps.
Infamously, like 2 years ago at the Brickyard, I was there with 4 laps to go for the road course when the curbs went crazy, and it was 4 laps to go. I was in the track, staying on Holman Boulevard, 4 laps to go. My camper was hooked up in lot 2. Walked out, got my camper, drove home. Checkered flag flew as I was pulling into the Mr. Fuel at State Road 3, and because of construction, I took 40 home because of the construction, and it had taken that long to complete 4. Like in theory 4 laps. But yeah, we don't do green white checkers, but that's the closest we've had. It just happened to be a 1 lap shootout.
It was very much unprecedented. I was okay that it happened. You want to see a green flag finish if you can. I was pretty well shocked that they didn't wreck again. I had lost all faith that they weren't going to just wad up more race cars.
I bet Marcus Ericsson wishes they'd have wadded up some more race cars.
He would
have win.
I'm happy it was clean, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm happy the end of it was clean. But yeah,
Was the reaction when you're part of the stands positive or negative when they kept throwing the red? They cheered.
They were happy.
They cheered in
yeah.
our section, yeah. Every time they say red
Everybody
flag,
was
we're like, heck yeah. We're like, we're going to see a shootout here.
Yeah.
Power terrorists.
There were some people that hadn't pissed the entire race that were kind of getting tired of the red flags, including me, because I had stayed in my seat, and the guy next to me, same deal. He was, there are amateurs that drink constantly up there, and they have to leave every 5 laps, and there's some of us that just figure it out and find a way to make it all 200. But there were some people that were getting a little ready to get downstairs. And then we waited, after the race is over, we hung out another 25 minutes because there's 80,000 people between me and where I'm trying to go that are in the way. That's telling you, the crowd is just insane.
Sounds awful.
Insane.
Oh, it's good people watching, though.
Spectacular.
Tremendous people
Yeah.
watching. Yeah.
That's what I did for probably the first 2.5, 3 hours when we got parked early in the morning. Sat the tailgate down, and I just put my sunglasses on, and I was just looking at just the range and the uniqueness of.
You see
All
people
right, there's
that
some people look kind of normal, and then it's an event.
we have the passes to be on the grid before the race. And then I made the decision. I talked to Sarah into, hey, let's take the tram. So there's a tram that leaves from behind the museum that goes up to the North 40, which saved me about a mile of walking in that crowd. Well, it was like being on a tram at the zoo, but instead of it being animals, it was people. And if you held your hand out, they'd hand you a beer.
You're describing the state fair tram.
It was
the state
when it
fair
rolls
tram,
by the snake pit and it rolls by the turn 3 infield crowd. It was spectacular.
Every time I go to the state fair, I just want to hand them like a 20 and just say I'm not getting off, and just people watch.
That was the tram at the Indy 500.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I can imagine the snake pit. I can see the snake pit from my seats, and I watch them. So I think somebody else counted. They said 12 ambulances left the snake pit throughout the day, and those people are at it at like 7 o'clock in the morning. They're at it, and I'm like,
No DJ Diesel though.
No DJ Diesel.
Yeah.
A lot of Cascaded apparently, but yeah. So I was watching that. You watch those people stream. They stream out for like an hour, just a constant. Like the sidewalk to leave the track is about a car width or car lane wide, and then they start to take over one of the driving lanes, and it's that wide of people just streaming out. And that's just the people leaving that way.
Just the ones
There's-
going north.
There's probably people that are going west and are going out the track that way because there's a tunnel going out west too. But just a never-ending stream of people for like an hour, and I'm like, how many people do they fit in that area? It's like 40,000 people. And it's in a little corner of the track you wouldn't even think you could hold a concert in, except for the huge stage.
All right, so here's one more thing I want to ask about, and then we'll wrap. The end of the race, they've got what they're calling the dragon, this move where the leader is weaving down the backstretch and now onto the front stretch as well. And coming off turn 4 on the last lap, Joseph Newgarden goes from being up on the racing service to being all of the tires
Pit lane.
into the entrance to pit lane. And then they have to do this push back up above pit wall before you enter pit lane. Scares the living crap out of me. Do you guys? What are your views?
They need to do something about it before somebody hits the attenuator, because that's
Hits
what's
the attenuator or goes down pit road.
or goes on pit road. Yeah, or what will happen is that they'll hit the attenuator sideways, and their engine will go down pit lane and will hit somebody. Especially like in that case, somebody pointed out that as the checkered fell, there were
Jack Harvey was on pit road.
Well,
Christian Lundgaard was on pit
Connor
road.
Daly pointed out, he's like, our guys were still heading back to the pit box because when the red flag, they're out. They've got a couple guys helping them with the car. So there were people on pit lane, and you'd be shocked how far a motor can probably go when it's doing 200 miles an hour and it's swerving around. Yeah, that's been a thing since 2019. They need to do something before somebody hits the wall, because somebody's going to hit the wall, and then they're going to get hurt or somebody else is going to get hurt. It looks. I listened to Off Track today, and Hinch went on quite a long thing, and I agree. It doesn't look professional either. It looks like if you had my son Jackson, who's 7, driving, and he was just swerving for just out of chaotic, just trying to be chaos while driving. That's what it looks like.
What do you think, Caleb?
I think it's spot on with what he said.
You had a front row seat to it.
Yeah. And
yeah.
I watched it and I thought we were all.
Why are they pitting?
I thought he was flying into pit road.
Yeah.
Everybody did. It's a recipe, I think, for potential disaster. I know NASCAR has their guidelines where back in the day they used to have the solid yellow line. You couldn't go under it. And if you did, you got black flag and you had to go to the back. I don't know if it's going to get that serious, but all it takes is one guy to just reaction time a little bit too slow, trying to save some aerodynamics, and he clips that wall, and then it could be really bad.
I wonder if it'll die because some people aren't chasing it. Ferrucci didn't chase it. The first 2 guys were doing it, and I think they said during the previous run somebody was doing it. They were doing, and somebody else, the guys in the back were like, "Yep, I'm just going to drive in a straight line." And wonder if it'll just if somebody gets beat while doing the dragon, it'll die. But hopefully they won't physically die. Nobody will wreck first. It'll just go away on its own, or they'll rule it out. Yeah, they should there's a dotted line, pit wall out. You shouldn't cross the dotted line. Not two tires, no tires. Don't touch it.
Any opinion, Jarod, Dakota?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Didn't you watch the end of it?
No.
Pull up the finish of the Indy 500, Dakota, and look at it here, and you'll see the maneuver we're talking about here.
So while you're
It's
doing
dramatic.
that, while you're doing that, we have a segment on our show called Green Flag, Red Flag, and this would be you either say green flag for a yes, keep this a thing, and don't hold any restrictions, or red flag like this needs to stop. But we know Jeremiah's fed up with the red flags here, so I will say this to your point: if let's say the back half of the dragon tail stays in a straight line and they end up gaining on whoever that last person is that breaks off to follow it and gets to their outside, I could imagine the car that ducks beneath the line to the left coming back up onto the track, those two colliding, the front of that broken half and the back of the broken half of the dragon tail, and there being a catastrophic
massive crash on the front stretch
from all of those guys at the back of that tail.
Yeah.
And nobody's lifting.
It lasts a second. It looks like he's going into the pit lane, and then boom, he curves out.
And what Hinch should point out, I didn't even think about, those cars do not want to turn right. They're lit. If you watch them, sometimes to go straight, they have to turn them right. They'll naturally just build the cars to turn left, which is why you see them come off the turn and you'll see them go all the way to the inside wall, because that's where the car naturally is going, and they scrub speed to make it go straight because they've got built to turn. So the cars aren't even liking the going right.
It's interesting how Marcus Ericsson is like he's behind him the whole time he does it,
Because Joseph is
He's
trying to
following
break
him.
the draft.
Right.
So he's trying to take away the advantage of Marcus Ericsson, and Marcus is sticking with him. I thought in 2019, it happened right in front of me. I thought the race is coming to an end. Simon Pagenaud's leading into Alex Rossi's second. And Pagenaud, I thought, was blocking, right? The very first time it happened, it was coming down the backstretch straight at us last lap. And I'm like, well, this will be fun. We're going to have a freaking penalty to decide the Indy 500. And there was no penalty. I was sitting there shocked, completely shocked that it was okay then. And it's just continued to get worse, right? Every year after that, it's just become more and more of a problem, and it's gotten worse. 2020, it was under yellow. 21, Alex Palou had no idea what he was doing, so he finished second. It didn't happen. And then the last 2 years, you've had this dragon deal. I'm kind of okay with it on the backstretch because it's not going to hurt. You're only going to hurt yourself. But on the front stretch, I either want the rule to be hell no, don't cross this line, or you've got to find a way to take pit road all the way out to turn 4 and say, y'all, if you're going to do this, you're going to have to start using the access road, and pit road's going away.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a rule in place. If you're Joseph Newgarden, like you're doing whatever it takes.
Well, that's the last lap of the Indy 500. You're going to do whatever you have to. But drivers have to be protected from themselves.
Absolutely.
Because at some point, that's why NASCAR came up with the double yellow line.
Exactly, yeah.
Because the same shit would happen. They'd run down the backstretch at Talladega. Oh, yeah. You'd make up 3 spots, and then, hey, guys, look out, I'm coming back in, and Elliott Sadler's flipping down in turn 3.
Video game move.
It happened, it was. They're going to do it.
Right.
All right. Very good. But let's move into final thoughts. I know Dakota's up past his bedtime already. He's got to be asleep in 22 minutes.
You guys don't understand. He's like 3 years out of his Buick phase. He's already been through his Buick phase.
Been through the Buick phase.
He's through his Buick, and he's looking at fine nursing homes. All right, Caleb, it has been a pleasure to have you here. Tell us anything else about the podcast we've forgotten, anything you want to plug, any particular segment you do that you want to tell us about. This is where we back clean up and make sure we get through some things.
Jarod kind of touched it with the green flag, red flag. I know we try. I don't know if you guys religiously do. You guys try to touch sports very often with your races, or you guys just kind of stick to the May thing?
This show is about whatever the hell we want it to be
Basically.
about. So it's not always about sports. It's whatever.
We try to start our show off with kind of anything in our day-to-day lives, but nothing really. Jarod kind of touched base on it pretty well about trying to stick to the grassroots. We like, for the most part, our show does cover all NASCAR and Xfinity and truck, but it's more based on the grassroots of Indiana racing and just trying to get people's stories out there to, like you said, get people to watch and grow the sport.
Awesome.
I would add, ever since we've started this, it's got me more invested into other motorsports. Like this year's 500 was the first time I was like glued to my seat. Like I was like, okay, I'm gonna start watching IndyCar.
Yeah, I mean the ratings. It's all anecdotal, right? I've had 2 people contact me that are like, "Hey, we're coming with you to Mid Ohio." Like they watched the race, they're 4 or 5 people are now coming to Mid Ohio directly because of the Indy 500. It was the most watched TV show, the most watched Sunday afternoon show since June on NBC.
What was it? Was it 4.92 million?
Yeah, it was the same. It was 13% of all TVs that were on, and almost 5 million people watched the Indy 500. And it was the most since June of last year watching the U.S. Open. I mean, insane number of people watching. When you can't find, everybody watches YouTube. They're watching something else on streaming. There's not to find something other than NFL football that unites folks, non-existent.
Even then, it's probably the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, it's regional for everything else. Not everybody's watching like the same games usually.
Final thoughts, Zachary Burcham?
No, I'm tired. Don't know what day it is. Finally kind of recovering.
At least it's nice and cool outside.
Oh my gosh. It's awful. It's the same crap every year. We go from summer, it's Memorial Day weekend.
Ran the furnace. At Indy.
It was so gorgeous last week. And my runs felt good because it was nice and cool. And then to get home on Monday, and it's like the switch flipped. And it's going to be 92 degrees or something on Saturday. But no, good race, great weekend, good time. Bummed it's over. Looking forward to next year. Look forward to Mid Ohio this year and whatever else I can get myself into. But other than that, I did look up. Dakota's asking about tire strategy, and the first Indianapolis 500, Ray Haroon asked the tire guys what's the best speed to go at, and they said 75. So he just drove 75 miles an hour, and he only went through one set of tires. He only swapped out one set. He went through 3 right rears. We only changed 4 tires the whole time because he's like, I don't care how fast anybody else goes. I'm going to go 75 miles an hour, and he won the race. So the first race was won on trying to change as few tires as possible.
Minimize your pit stops.
Yeah.
The Kenny Schrader, we talked about Kenny Schrader earlier. My favorite thing about him is he's like, it don't matter how you win the race. The only thing that matters is who crosses the finish line first.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if you did it on tire strategy, fuel strategy, you were the fastest car. You got to the end of the race faster than anybody else. How you did it does not matter, and you never apologize for it. There's entry blank. You put your name down. You got it in the race. You did it. Your boy Josh says a coil wire broke in the mod. He's back to 100%. He's good to go.
That's what I'm talking about, Josh.
You got your update.
Teach me how all that stuff works. I want to know how long that took you to get that.
Oh man, I blew a coil on my Dakota once doing a tune-up, and it took me 2 days to figure out what went wrong.
All right, Jarod, what's next? You going to be owning a race car? You going to be driving? You going to be crewing? What's next?
Yeah. So,
and if so, what's the lie you're going to tell to get into it? Because if you're a good Dinner with Racers fan, you know that it all starts with a con.
So there's a few things I'll add. One is, I do enjoy racing myself. So I got a racing cockpit chair at home. It's got the wheel and the pedals and a shifter on it. I play a lot of Gran Turismo 7. Caleb's been in the seat.
You're the next William Byron, aren't you?
Yeah, I might be. I'm actually, so the Nations Cup right now is going on at Gran Turismo. I'm ranked number 1 in the state, 47th nationally, and I think like 200th in the U.S. and Canada. So I'm actually performing now on the game that I've gotten some sports car time. And speaking of sports car drivers, I know NASCAR does a pretty good job of this, of bringing IndyCar guys and retired F1 guys with Project 91. Jordan Taylor will be racing
Garage 56.
Yep, Garage 56. Jordan Taylor will be racing the number 10 Colleague Chevrolet during the Xfinity race at Portland.
Portland this weekend.
So, but yeah, no, I mean, from here, what we want to do is obviously grow.
Actually, a small correction. It's Rodney Sandstrom.
Oh, yeah, that's right. His Twitter page.
That's one of the most brilliant people on social media. Period.
He's awesome. I love following him. But yeah, we're obviously trying to grow our audience. Look into getting some media credentials to be able to talk to drivers and things of that nature, and just get around. And really, this year is about learning for us, in getting out to the tracks and understanding who the drivers are, and getting the FaceTime with them, and just building from there. Like, I would love to. Josh has got our sticker on his car. I'd love to sponsor, him and Tommy in the future if he gets another ride. But and I'm excited about that. And there's a couple things I did want to hit on just to promote some of our folks that have helped us out along the way. One is Yard Cart Nationals. So I know I glossed over it earlier, but Matt Monday has a private racing series, which is the go-karts on dirt that I've been talking about, and which is something you probably had never heard of, but you can go on YouTube or Facebook. Their Yard Cart Nationals page has a lot of good content on there. You can watch the GoPro footage from those drivers. They do a really good job of putting videos together. And Matt's got a YouTube page called Monday Moto.
Are we doing ovals or twisties?
They actually, I think they threw in a road course dirt track. But so yeah,
That'd be so awesome.
But yeah, so they've got they're obviously there's folks that are building new tracks, and they're up to like 48, 50 drivers this year, like with a championship series and points and all of that, which is really cool. So if you guys want to check that out, go to their Facebook page or that YouTube channel that I just plugged. And then, I'd be doing a disservice to our men and women in uniform without giving a veteran shout out. So Lee LeGrand, he's retired as a first sergeant in the Marine Corps. I had a chance to work with him in 2018 for a year, and actually got to run security with Marines up at Kansas Speedway that year as well. Saw Chase Elliott's Mountain Dew scheme that year. And long story short there,
He's getting excited over a sticker.
Lee LeGrand has a YouTube channel. It's LW LeGrand, and I post it on our socials all the time. But anyways, he just does so many things for like our veterans in and out of uniform. Whether it's talking about folks that have PTSD or just lack of motivation, getting through the civilian life and transitioning or whatever it may be. He's really big into fitness right now, and he's actually got a bodybuilding competition coming up, which the dude is just absolutely jacked. But long story short there, if you want to check him out, go to his YouTube page. He's doing a lot of really good things, and I don't think he's got the audience or credit he deserves for the things that he's doing. So, and the last thing that I have is July the 4th, there's a memorial event, and I'll pull up the name here in a second, but they're doing a go-kart event at the Bloomington, Indiana Fairgrounds, and I forget Kevin's last name. Let me pull it up. He was a sprint car driver in the 90s, and this is their second annual memorial event. All right, let me get to it here. All right, they call it the Huntley Hustle. So Kevin Huntley, I think he was a 2-time All-Star champion in sprint cars back when he was driving. But anyways, yeah, they built a track out at one of the properties out there and started bringing drivers in, and Kevin was basically funding a lot of the stuff that to make this stuff happen. And he passed away January, I think, of 22, and so they're doing their second annual go-kart event at the Bloomington, Indiana Fairgrounds on July 4th weekend. So if you don't have any plans, I think right now they got like 48 drivers with a $3,900 purse and $1,000 to win. And so if you guys want to go out there and support what those guys are doing,
that's going to be on the 4th of July.
That'll be on the 4th of July.
So on the Tuesday night.
Yeah. So
you got the day off, guys. Go watch some race cars.
Yeah. And take the next day off probably too.
Do yourself a favor. Yeah.
But
especially if you're going to Bloomington.
But yeah, that's all I got. I mean, like I said, if you guys want to give us a follow on Facebook, we post a lot of stuff there, and then we're on Spotify as well. So, but I really can't thank you guys enough for having us on. It's been a blast. I love watching your guys' shows from time to time and listening to you guys. You always have some good banter between you and Dakota. So I know there's a lot of pressure over here in this corner most of the time, but you did a really good job at the 2 tires and fuel only educational piece. Nobody likes doing public math either. So like, I was impressed with the firing from the hip there.
Yeah,
did a good job. And I might watch Cars 3 after this.
You better watch Cars 3.
Dakota is being bludgeoned into becoming a race fan.
The no tires, just gas line. That's in the first Cars. It's Cars 1.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's when he refuses to have his pit crew.
Right. Well, he has his pit crew. His pit crew leaves him after the race. Whenever he says that there's more to racing than just winning, and that he's a one-man show.
So just to give, Cars 3 cast includes Paul Newman, Darrell Waltrip, Humpy Wheeler, Ray Evernham, Jeff Gordon, Lewis Hamilton in there for fun, Kyle Petty, Junior Johnson, Richard Petty, Daniel Suarez, Bubba Wallace, Chase Elliott, Mike Joy. They got some, and Junior Johnson's basically playing himself.
I only knew.
What year did Cars 3 come out? Is it like
they've got some dead people in here?
I was going to say, is Paul Newman posthumous?
No, Paul Newman is definitely posthumous, and also they have the 2 guys, and people don't. It's one of those inside that the movie's got Easter eggs kind of all over it. It's got the guys who did Car Talk, and one of them has been dead for years. But there's so much Car Talk audio that the family said, "Yeah, that's okay," and they just create his audio out of because they've got, thousands of hours.
So I knew about Dale Jr. because Dale Jr. plays.
He plays himself in it.
No, what's his name? He plays.
Well, they give him names, but
Chip Weathers. Strip Weathers. Is that his name? Is it Chip or Strip?
I can't remember.
I can't remember.
I need to go back and watch it again.
He plays the son of the guy who wrecked, had a horrible wreck in the first movie.
Yeah.
And he plays the son who has taken over the Dynaco brand and the number and everything from his dad. So that one's pretty obvious.
That might be Kyle because the Dynaco is very much STP. Yeah. Yes, those are great movies. You should watch them.
Dakota can't tell North Carolina from North Carolina.
No,
he doesn't know a Randleman kid from a High Point kid to a Kannapolis kid.
I know Dale Jr. is the Dynaco part because I looked it up.
I'm going to tell a fun story, though. So this audition, we are 3 feet from Dale Jr. And, I just forgot the name. Steve Letarte. But they are in NBC mode.
Steve is tall.
Steve is tall, yeah. Some of these people are taller than you think. And there's a woman standing there holding a TV monitor on a stick. And one of the people that's in the audition, or the rehearsal, because when we came back for the afternoon, it was probably like 10 or 15 of us that had been there in the morning, and the rest of them, they just used random volunteer college kid employees to fill in the rest of the field for people that didn't come back. Well, this one guy is like really determined to like talk to Dale Jr. because if you're in racing circles, he is like a prince of a sport. Like his dad is immortal. And this guy walks up and he kind of looks at Dale and he looks at her and she just looks at him and just shakes her head. No.
Ain't happening today.
Don't even try it. And he just gave up because Dale was not giving us any attention at all. He was like looking at his phone.
At one moment, Dale was signing autographs. And I was like, or taking pictures with people. And then it just stopped. He wasn't doing it anymore. He didn't give it a whole lot of time to do it. But yeah, I'm holding this picture up.
Steve
for the guys
Letart's
here.
like a head taller than him.
They were right behind us.
Steve Letarte was all over all weekend. But
Yeah, we saw Steve. I think I walked by Steve on pit road. It might be qualifying day.
Yeah, I think he was there the week before. But but this woman's expression when she looked at him and was like, "Don't even think about it." It was funny, spectacular.
It's about time for them to get started again for NASCAR.
Yeah,
NBC's coming up.
They took over at Nashville in July. Dakota, final thoughts? You still
Cal
training
Weathers-
for your big race?
Strip Weathers is the one who wrecks, and Cal Weathers is his son. I just had to get that out there. Just gonna-
How's the mini marathon training going?
Fine, I guess.
All right, sounds like a man that's committed to it.
I haven't paid yet. I got to pay before June 6th because the price goes up. Travis texted me about it.
You've been promoting the hell out of this thing. You don't get a complimentary admission to this?
Payday is tomorrow.
My God.
I'll be paying my entry fee tomorrow. Yep.
Zach's still trying to decide if he's running in that or if he's going to he's going to go hang out with Rodney Sandstorm at the IMSA race.
Why don't you pace me, Zach?
I'm not fast enough to pace you based off my last half marathon.
Pace me. I'm trying for 9 minutes, 59 seconds.
You slowed down.
Yeah, I've slowed way down. My long runs, I've realized that my knees hurt a lot. My knees hurt a lot, Zach. I had to slow way down.
I did have an oh crap moment because I get an update on June 1st, like how my May went, and I only ran 86 miles in May, but I ran 146 in the month of April, and I was like, dang, Zach, you were doing something. It didn't amount to anything when it came time to the race. I put some mileage down that week.
That's
yeah.
a lot more miles than what I ran.
Zach, you ran the entire width of the state of Indiana in April.
Yeah.
You ran from Richmond to Terre Haute.
Almost.
And a little into Illinois.
Yeah, not quite because
2 different spots to run to and from, though.
yeah. I mean, it's a little farther than that because then Tom Raper is at 149A or something like that.
Somewhere in there, but I'm giving you a little help.
So
Never turn away a compliment.
you sign up tomorrow. I'll sign up tomorrow. You can pace me for 10 minutes, and then at the very end, the last mile, we just kick it in, and then I can get under
Zach will
2
hate
hours.
himself. No, there's no way. He's he's collapsing at the end. He doesn't have another gear at the end.
He could pace me. He's in marathons and
those
stuff.
people that go running sprinting at the end, I'm like, they had more to give. They have way more to give. You got enough to sprint at the end of a half or a full. Then you probably had another 10 minutes.
Zach finishes a race and he's out of fenders, out of tires, out of motor. He's done.
It's all on the verge of tears.
It's over. All right. Thank you guys very much for being a part of the show. We got to wrap this up. We are running very long. And Dakota should have been in bed 7 minutes ago. We thank you all for the support. We will be back Thursday night.